is culpable as an individual. We have laws right now which say that ROs, or returning officers, who make mistakes are going to be culpable for those mistakes. So that's the way to go. That's the way to say, let's have a commission. We have procurement officers who are doing something wrong. We have the executive or the chief election officer who is responsible. Let them have their day in court, but don't condemn the entire commission. We are using also a lot of resources in training these commissions. It's a lot of resources. This country is talking about trying to conserve our resources. They go for trainings. The staff go for trainings over time. So if you're going to have one, and I'll also talk about I'll just explain the issue of the short-termism also here. So you're going to have a commission which is being changed every now and then. Every time there is hue and cry over a managerial election, we want the entire team to go home. Then we also have returning officers who are also going to come hopefully for one term. Then we're also going to have staff who are working for only 3 years and not sure that they're going to have another contract because it'll be vetted. That creates short-termism. I don't know how many Kenyans want to go to work to an institution where they're not sure whether they're going to work there in the 4th year. And everybody, therefore, the concentration will be just on the few, on the years in which they are having their contracts running. And knowing our country, when we create such a contracted period, it creates appetite for other things like corruption. So our thinking...
All right, that is the Election Observation Group National Coordinator Mule Nzao appearing before the Yusuf Haji-led committee that is getting the views of Kenyans when it comes to the BBI. And this today we also expect the majority leader at the National Assembly, Honorable Aden Duale, to also make his presentation before the committee, giving the past release view. It is a developing story, right? They'll give you the coverage as and when, the majority leader Aden Duale makes his way to the Yusuf Haji-led committee. But now we shift our focus to matters sugarcane in the western region, where farmers could get another round of bailouts from the government after President Uhuru Kenyatta received the task force report outlining key reforms for the ailing sector. Now, the commitment was made by President Uhuru Kenyatta while receiving the report presented to him by Agriculture CS Peter Munya and Kakamega Governor Wycliffe Oparanya.
Today, yet another light at the end of the tunnel seems to have lit up for thousands of cane farmers across the Western Kenya sugar belt after President Uhuru Kenyatta received the Sugarcane Task Force report. The report will roll into motion the revival of the once lucrative sector with key recommendations aimed at ensuring farmers are able to eke a living from their cane. The most radical proposal will see consumers incur a sugar levy with the proceeds directed towards the development of cane. Other proposals include gazettement of sugar sector regulations, governing the importation of sugar, enactment of the Sugar Act, amendment of the AFA and Crops Act, as well as review of the tax regime to offer incentives for those seeking to invest in the sector. The task force also asked for the strict compliance with the COMESA regulations and outlined additional reforms needed to increase production. The government further pledged to facilitate the privatization of key sugar mills, which have also been saddled with debt. The report also recommends support to cane farmers through implements such as seed and fertilizer. The task force was set up in 2018 with the key mandate of making recommendations to revive the ailing sector, whose operations have been crippled by poor governance, lack of capital, debt, obsolete technology, and high cost of production, resulting in farmer apathy. Henry Githaiga, KTN News.
Let's get the views of residents from the Western region, and let's speak to a man on the ground, Willie Lusige. Willie Lusige, good morning. Let's begin first, by getting, what are farmers saying, especially on President Uhuru Kenyatta's sentiment that the government will once again bail out, some of the ailing sugar companies in Western?
Most of those farmers I've spoken to early this morning seem not really understand what is entailed in that task force report, because it was handed over to the president yesterday and most of the farmers are not aware of what the details of that report. But for their benefit, first of all, that sugar task force that was formed on 8th of November 2018 to investigate and come up with findings of how to revive the sugar sector, especially in Western, where it's ailing. First of all, they have proposed the introduction of the sugar levy, which used to be 4% ex-factory price, which meant that if sugar was sold to those ones who are dealing with it, and then 4% of the total money of that selling purchase or the purchase price was going back as sugar levy. And this sugar levy was used to maybe to provide funds for the revival of sugar sector, and apart from that also those funds were also used to provide farmers incentives. And apart from that also, that report has proposed what we term as privatization of those state-owned sugar millers, including Mumias Sugar Company, the one that we are standing on now, which has been ailing for long, and even Zoea and other sugar state factories, which in total number, I think there are 5 now. They will be privatized if that report will be implemented, because they have not been able to continue with their crushing power, and you have seen some of them being overtaken by debts, including Mumias Sugar Company. And apart from that also, other suggestions that have been introduced is the zoning of sugar regions. Zoning clearly means that every factory will have a specific radius where they can only buy raw material, that is sugarcane, whereas right now any factory can buy their raw material from any region. So zoning is one of the proposals, and apart from that also the government is proposing now to only deal with farmers but leave issues of running these state-owned factories to private entities. Like here in Mumias, it had been taken over by KCB, which is owed by this factory more than 1 billion shillings. And actually right now the management that had taken over Mumias Sugar Factory had decided to start planting new cane, and they were just in their initial plowing process before they plant that cane. So definitely this factory now will be taken over from them and given to a private developer. Those are just some of the key issues that have been entailed in that report that we expect, if it will be implemented, then definitely the fate of the Mumias will be revived. But I think it's also very important I speak to some of the farmers, even though most of them do not understand what is in that report. I will speak with one of them who has been behind pushing that task force to be able to find that report. Let me speak with you. Karibu sana kwenye KTN News. The report has been handed over to the president. Do you have hope that this is the lasting solution to ailing sugar sector in the entire western and even other regions across the country?
Thank you, Mr. Lusige. My name is Boniface Manda. I'm a farmer and I'm also an activist when it comes to sugar cane matters. I want to say that I'm a happy Kenyan, because the president yesterday received a long-awaited task force report, which he himself put in place, a task force report in 2018, and we are expecting a lot from it. I want to say that I'm a happy person, because some of the recommendations that we gave to the task force report, when they were going round, some of the recommendations that are there, if they are implemented, they are going to help the common person.
Which are these recommendations?
One of them, the key thing in the recommendations that we made was the zoning. Because we actually understand that the biggest problem that these factories have been having is what we call cane poaching. Now that we'll be having zoning, then we